IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We're a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring a fresh perspective to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Policy. This is going to be a special episode since it's the end of the year and we thought we'd do something fun with today's episode. And what we're going to talk about today is again China. We talk a lot about China at Takshashila Institution, and we thought we would see what the Chinese government and the Chinese companies were up to in the last year, especially in the field of technology. So this is like a year-end review of China's tech growth in 2021 and to see what milestones they have achieved in different fields of technology and what to expect in the next year and how it can impact the global economy and the global geopolitical landscape itself. Today, I have with me Megha, who is a research analyst with the China Studies program. She tracks tech in China and she writes about it in her newsletter. So I thought it'll be a nice way to go forward with the conversation. So Megha, can you just give us a brief overview of some main events, tech-related events in China which happened in 2021?
Hi Arjun, thanks for inviting me again. And we do talk a lot about China at Takshila, probably because China is such an interesting place and we all love to talk about things that are happening there. And also, China Studies program at TI is awesome. So, probably that's why. So, a lot of things happened in China this year. There's a lot of focus on, semiconductor, and I think shadow of this US-China tech war was also there. There's some shadow of Quad countries agreements. So things were happening on quantum computing front. Then digital currency. China, I think, launched their own digital currency. Then NFT fever, like in other places, was also high in China. I think most recent example would be China's newspaper Xinhua also jumped into this, fray of NFTs. They was cracked on Bitcoin. So for some duration, Bitcoin kind of lost its sheen, but then it bounced back. Then China, there's from government front, there was a lot of regulation and a crackdown on China, big tech in China at least. So, for example, one was the Chinese government trying to pull down these digital walls which different tech companies had built. Then LinkedIn left China. So that was interesting. So LinkedIn was one of the last tech giants which was still operating China. So with LinkedIn leaving, it kind of, became a big news. Then there's scrutiny of algorithms which tech companies use, then a backlash on edtechs, a lot of progress on electrical vehicle fronts. The World Internet Conference at Wuhan generated a lot of talk. And China also launched its first virtual student, which I found it very interesting. These are just few highlights. I cannot possibly talk about everything because there's just too much to even track. So a lot of things. Yeah, I think you can tell me more about what's happening on semiconductor front. You have been tracking this for a while, I guess.
Yeah, semiconductors has been in the news from the past year, and especially with the whole chip shortage and the existing chip shortage across the world, and the fact that China has been trying to have a self-reliance in the field. But we have talked about semiconductors a lot, and we know that it's such a complicated supply chain with multiple choke points, and it's hard for even a tech giant like China to even dream of being self-reliant in this field. But one thing which they were focusing on is about manufacturing their own chips, And this was through their largest contract chip maker, that is Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, SMIC. So they had actually signed an agreement with the Lingang Special Area, that is the part of the Shanghai's free trade zone, to establish a new factory. This was like a 9 billion US dollars worth foundry with a monthly production capacity of 100,000 12-inch wafers. So SMIC would control like 51% of the joint venture, and there was also like an investment entity designated by the Shanghai government that they would have a 25% stake. So in March, SMIC announced that it would work with the Shenzhen government to invest in a $2.3 billion project to produce 28 nanometer and above integrated circuits. Like this was also done during the COVID-19 global semiconductor chip crunch. So this kind of shows China's intent to aggressive, aggressively expand its manufacturing capacity, and the whole concept and the whole it is in the backdrop of the US-China tech war. This is also because some Chinese companies have become victims of the tech war, like Huawei, which has effectively got banned from the US. So the one thing that they could not what do you say escape is sanctions by the United States. There are still some major sanctions which have been put in by the US government because they think that this would constrain China's progress in the domain, and this has actually affected them more than we can imagine. But they are trying to not get bogged down by these sanctions and still realize their semiconductor manufacturing dream. So one thing which I thought was really interesting this year was that there was this news about how Alibaba is kind of unveiling a chip which is 5 nanometers. So that is the one of the hardest technologies to manufacture. And till now, we could see that there was only 14 nanometer chips which were being manufactured in China. So this came as a surprise for everyone. And the fact that these were just reports and claims which were being made, because there has been no kind of proof that China can manufacture the 5 nanometer chips yet. So it is, we do not know. We should take all these announcements they make with a pinch of salt. And the fact that they have to rely on TSMC or Samsung or any other bigger foundry to manufacture these higher technology chips. So that was the semiconductors front. But again, there is a lot happening, and the rising tensions between China and Taiwan also has this whole semiconductor backdrop to it. We know that Taiwan is the largest chip manufacturer in the world, and if China decides to aggressively pursue its, maybe I don't know what intentions they have, but there is that whole fear of China taking over Taiwan's semiconductor industry and effectively gaining that position in the global supply chain. So we have to see how that goes, but it is for sure that China and its semiconductor industry have been working quite hard to improve upon its I wouldn't say weaknesses, but at least there are some places which they are not on par, and they're trying to get on par with let's say the West or Taiwan or even South Korea or other semiconductor giants. So that's from the semiconductor front. But you were talking about tech regulations, right? I mean, we saw that there was a huge crackdown on technology and tech firms in China this year. So, can you just give me like an explainer of what the Chinese government did to have this crackdown and what was the intention behind it?
Yeah, so before I talk about tech crackdown, I'll be honest here. I mean, when I last few years when this whole tech war thing started, or at least this keyword was caught up in media and everywhere, I was kind of fancying was some lot of fancy things happening, but ultimately it boils down to which chip can you produce this chip or not. It was little it was just downer that this is okay, this is not, I mean, probably this is very high on a very high fi level, might be very good, but I don't know what I expected when I saw Tech War. Maybe I just watched too much of Star Trek and Star Wars. Yeah, so coming back to
Yeah, tech war is more or less just countries fighting with each other to produce better technologies.
yeah,
I guess. I mean, that's the basic way of putting it. But again, we do not know what exactly is tech war. Yeah.
yeah. So coming back to tech crackdown, I think rather than just mentioning what they did or what government did, I think it's important to know why, what were the reasons which Chinese government gave to crack down on big technologies or big technology companies precisely, like Alibaba. So one of the reasons was ensuring fairness and fair competition. I think in one of the laws which they brought out recently, they also mentioned that these big tech companies have a responsibility to maintain fairness and encourage so that small startups or small companies don't get discouraged. There's also the sense of holding these big technology companies accountable to what they are doing, or how they're using data, or how they are spreading information rather, because there was a lot of talk of a lot of actions on this technology companies were taken on the pretext of spreading misinformation, or allowing misinformation to propagate. Then there's also concerns on personal data protection and privacy. So that reason was also there. Some of them were fined for taxes, and this tax evasion was also used as a pretext, not just for tech companies, but also for this personalities which use tech platforms to like live streaming, for live streaming. So influencers and live streamers were also fined using this excuse. So these were largely, at least this is what I feel, largely in online with this call for Xi Jinping's call for common prosperity, or moving from hard technology, moving towards hard technologies, and it feels like this free run which tech companies had is now over, and now these companies will have to follow Communist Party's line. This is what I feel, at least.
Before we continue with the episode, let's take a small break and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, it's all about food. Cyrus is in conversation with Vikas Khanna, chef, restaurateur, author, and judge on MasterChef India. They discuss Vikas's new book, Barkat. On Misconduct, Raghavi and Nisha throw it back to all the female criminals from season 1 of the show. On The Habit Coach with Ashton Doctor, philosopher and guru Gautam Jain shares some actionable habits to strengthen our minds. On The Longest Constitution, Priya explains how India's first guidelines of sexual harassment at the workplace came to be. And on Audio Gyan, editor Dibya Jyoti Sarma walks Kedar through the journey of publishing a poetry book. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. We'd also really appreciate any ratings or reviews you can give us on any of the platforms that we're listening on, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, or IVM Podcast app. Wherever you're listening, do let us know that you are listening. I'd also like to remind you all that we have a number of YouTube channels where a number of shows are available. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to check out what channels we have. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to this episode of All Things Policy, and we were discussing about China's tech crackdown. So, being a technologically advanced state, China is, I don't know how to put this, but they kind of promote innovation as well as introduce these hard regulations to clamp down on any sort of additional sort of
I
innovation
think it's
itself.
like as long as you follow my command, we are good. It feels like that, whenever you read. As long as you are, as long as you toe or line, it's fine. If you're going beyond line, or if you're being, larger than, I dare say, if you become larger than my own party, then I'll, clip your wings, something like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
So there's also I had also read that there's buzz about this quantum science and technologies, and I remember you were tracking quantum science and technologies a lot. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so China itself has been kind of pushing towards utilizing and developing quantum technologies and real world applications of quantum physics itself. So it was in like back in 2016, I think President Xi Jinping kind of established a national strategy for China for quantum innovation and research. He allocated funds for a long-term mega project and also announced the establishment of a national laboratory for quantum information sciences. So after that, it's China has been growing leaps and bounds in the field. In 2016, they had their quantum satellite, which was out, and that was the first ever quantum satellite which was launched. And in 2017, there was the opening of the Beijing Shanghai communication line. So this was hailed as the world's longest unhackable communication line. And so in these ways, quantum technologies has grown in China massively in the past 5 6 years. But this year specifically, there were these main achievements or these milestones which were reached by China. There were three main milestones actually. One was like the use of nanoscale semiconductors called quantum dots to transmit single photons. And this is essential for any quantum network. And this helps in long range communication and ensuring that there is no signal loss or it is not susceptible to noise over long range of communication. So this mainly is used in communicating with quantum satellites and stuff like that. So that one was a major achievement for China. Other than that, in quantum computing itself, there was a huge improvement of their own photonic quantum computer from 76 to 113 photons. So this was an upgrade to their already existing quantum advantage. And finally, one thing which I think everyone should have heard of is that they revealed Zhuangxi. It's a Chinese-made quantum computer which is comprising of a superconducting 66 qubits, which easily surpasses the speed and computing power of the previous fastest computer in the world, which was Google's quantum computer Sycamore. So there was so basically China owns two of the fastest computers in the world right now, and it is the only country to achieve a quantum advantage in both photonic and superconducting quantum computing. So that was something very interesting. And also the fact that with these kind of developments in the field itself, there is also the threat of the Chinese armed forces utilizing quantum tech for military purposes. So that I think you would have tracked. So I'll come to you for that. But again, so that is mostly quantum. But I think recently, this was just I guess a couple of weeks back, there was an announcement made by a group of Chinese scientists. They declared the creation of a quantum communication network in space using their satellite to secure the national power grid against blackouts and other long distance attacks. So that is a massive step in building secure communication networks using quantum science and tech. So there have been huge strides which have been made by China in the field of quantum, and we should see how the others respond. We saw that the US and Australia signed a quantum agreement to share quantum technologies with each other and to promote the research and development of the field itself. So we have to see what China has in store for the next year, especially with this field. But coming to the military angle, I think you would have you would have tracked the implications of these quantum technologies for this national security purpose. So you can tell us more about that?
Yes. So I recently actually also wrote about this, an article. I mean, even I was tracking this quantum technology and China's progress in this field. So what I realized was two applications stand out most if you view it from a security angle. One is quantum communication, the satellite and network grid which you talked about. And second is computing. So if you track military applications and how they view future wars and what kind of applications PLA talks about, it's mostly securing their own communications, attacking information systems, attacking devices which handle information or information management systems. So cyber security kind of becomes a very important factor if we consider even national security. So if, for example, if China is successful in building a whole network based on quantum technologies, which is theoretically unhackable, then it will pose a very big risk to other countries because they won't be they won't be able to penetrate Chinese systems. And this might become, of course, this is like far ahead, maybe to the at least to the level which I'm talking about. But then again, the mere possibility of this happening, it's a little frightening. Second is computing. So the time advantage which quantum computing offers over traditional computers is huge, and if this is scaled and implemented properly, this can be a good advantage to real-time data processing, big data processing, which PLA envisions for their battlefield applications. So there are a few instances where PLA leaders and articles in PLA Daily have talked about building a system which can combine the data from different system across all the theaters and then generate intelligent inputs. So these kind of processing, that too in real time, needs a super fast capabilities, and quantum computers do offer such ability. So if China succeeds, this will be a huge advantage. So they can, with this kind of technologies, they can actually build their offensive and defensive capabilities very successfully. So this is interesting and at the same time a little frightening also.
Yeah. I mean, the military angle is always there for any emerging and critical technology that we talk about. So, China gaining like a quantum military advantage is something we might have to look out for in the near future. So, other than that, I think there were quite a bit happening in space and space technologies per se. So China did have its own space station and stuff like that. So can you just tell us what they did this year with space tech?
Yeah, so a lot of developments in space field also, but two or three which stand out is the fifth lunar exploration mission Chang'e 5, which recently brought back samples from Moon to Earth also. Then the space station which they are building, Tiangong, which is roughly translated into Heavenly Palace. So they launched its core model, Tianhe, to build towards building that space station. I think they are targeting to complete its construction by next year, I guess. Then their Mars mission, which they had launched last year. So it's rover Shurong, I guess. Okay, I have still haven't mastered this pronunciation. I think it's called Shurong. So that landed on Mars surface. And this was significant because China is only second country till now after United States to achieve this. So this was quite generated quite a buzz on China's internet, social media, other digital forums. So at these achievements, they take it very seriously. I mean, if you scan through the social media and other social platforms, or even official state media, there are a lot of publicity going on regarding these achievements. There were talks organized to interact with astronauts, and their biographies getting published everywhere. So they're quite they're not shying away from showing off their achievements in space field. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, so much happened in China, and I don't think we have even covered 50% of it. There would be so much more which is happening and which would not have been reported, and we do not know what exactly happened. But yeah, this was a fun episode. I learned a lot about what it was just like a history lesson of China's technology of 2021 type. So I learned a lot. So maybe we'll revisit this next year and see what China did next year itself. So yeah, thanks Megha for joining me on this episode. And yeah,
a little update. All Things Policy will be on break on the 30th and 31st of December.
See you guys, and have a happy new year to everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you and to everybody who's listening.
Okay, again. See you. Bye-bye.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcasts website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार